Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 7, Episode 8. Ain't it great? It's not late, but wait, there's more. This is the third time I've tried to record this episode, but anyway, my sanity is still mostly intact, and hopefully it still will be by the end of this episode because we're going to be touching on some topics that I've talked about before over the past couple of weeks, really having to do with like the world of YouTube, negativity, positivity, how you approach that, because I don't know if I've talked about it enough on here. I feel like I did cover it in the episode from 2 weeks ago, but just to be sure, I personally feel better about YouTube and my channel and the community and everything better than I have in a really long time, probably at least like the last 2 years. So in the past several weeks, I've just been able to get to a point where personally I feel better and more excited, more positive about that stuff than I have in a really, really long time. And that's been very exciting. And I want to touch on that and share that and sort of discuss that. And I found a video on this little website called YouTube this past week, if you've heard of it, that really does a good job of encapsulating a lot of that. So I kind of want to dissect parts of that and explain that and share that. And it's also my pitch for you to go watch that video, which I will talk about in a moment in its entirety, because it is a 2-hour long video, but I promise it's worth every second of that time. And so that's going to be kind of the main focus of today's episode. Prior to that, I do have a voice submission, which is going to be a nice transition into that. And prior to that, we should talk about what I'm recording with, because that's always a hot topic of conversation. I am recording a video version again. I'm still fine-tuning my video podcast simple setup to see how that goes, but I am in the room. Oh, I just realized I don't have my camera on the proper setting. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now I have the proper setting. I forgot to switch my camera to 30 FPS, which it just seems like when I'm using the ATEM running into eCam, everything looks smoother and nicer at 30 FPS. And I was at 24. Geez, the nerve. Moving on beyond that. So I've been working on this video podcasting setup to get this going, and it's been really, really fun. I'm in the cozy room. So if you want to see it, you could be on Patreon or YouTube channel memberships. Of course, links in the description for these shameless self-plugs. But the audio version will always give you everything that you need as well. You're not like missing out on anything crazy except for my beautiful face. Maybe more importantly, this beautiful space. Because once again, like I did last week, I sort of did not set up my studio the way I normally would for a video. I kept it very easy and basically only turned on a couple of lights, like the lights that would normally be on when I'm in the space just working or hanging out on my own, not making a video. And I really like the way that it looks for podcasting, and I got good feedback from last week, which is very funny because I have spent so much time over the years, so much time setting up so many lights to make things look so specific, and it looks good without any of that. So what have I been doing? Which I know it's not true. I really like the way that it looks when it's normally lit the way it's supposed to be, but it's very cool to discover sort of a new side to a space that I've been working in for a long time. That's really, really neat. And mentally, it's actually been kind of a cool thing too, because what I've noticed is when I was doing video podcasts where I would come in and I would set up the room like normal, like I'm going to film a video, and I turn on all of the lights, 14, 15 lights, maybe there's even more than that at this point. It puts me into a headspace of making a video. And it's weird because there is a difference for me between podcasting and videos. I want them all to feel authentic and genuine, but I like the podcast to feel much more conversational. You know, there's a lot more mistakes that are left in them. And I like that. I like that it feels like we're kind of just hanging out talking, whereas the video is much more, I would say polished, but there's a lot of mistakes in those too. The video tries to be more polished and tries to have, very specific purposes, and it's edited, it's heavily edited and all that kind of stuff to cut things down and make it as like concise as possible, even if it does run for 20 or 25 minutes or more. And just being in that just when all the lights turn on, everything's going, I just sort of feel when I'm doing a podcast the same way as I'm doing a video. And the way that I like to present those things is very different. So I've noticed that by just keeping this lighting set up, even if you're listening to the audio only version and it makes no difference if I'm sitting in pitch black or not, it makes it different for me, and it makes it better for me while recording. So it's just something I didn't realize would have as big of an impact as it does. And that's probably worth sharing, because if you're someone who makes stuff, your environment that you're in has a huge impact on how you feel while you're making that thing, which does have an impact on the outcome of the thing that you made. So that's been pretty fun to figure that out. And then today I am also recording into the Electro Voice RE20. This is the RE20 Black, but there's no difference between this and the regular RE20 in terms of sound. I do have the little BSW windscreen on it, which is awesome. It also fits on the Procaster. And I'm running into the Rodecaster Pro 2, also on the RE20 preset. I haven't changed anything. I just turn on the preset and hit record. And that's what we're doing. And I like the way that the Rodecaster Pro 2 presets, I really like the way that they sound. I love trying to, dial them in and fine tune them a little bit, but especially for the SM7B and the RE20, I've tried improving them and making them sound better to my ears. And then I go back like the next day and listen to them, and I just feel like this sounds so much better, the regular presets. And it's interesting, the RE20, I haven't used this microphone in a while, but I wanted to use it because I don't use it as much as I should. And I really, really like it a lot more than I ever expected to, which is funny because if I were to have both the RE20 and the SM7B just sitting in front of me and was told pick a microphone to use, I would pick the SM7B. I just really like that microphone for a lot of reasons. But a few weeks ago when we were doing the 100K live stream, Heather and I were doing the blindfolded mic, not taste test, I don't know what they taste like, but the sound test challenge. And without being able to hear, or with only being able to hear things and not being able to see things, I preferred the RE20 over almost everything. And I was kind of surprised by that. And I don't remember if this was part of the stream or if it was just something we were doing afterwards. But when I was doing the RE20 and the SM7B side by side, I really preferred the RE20, which is so interesting because with being able to see them and knowing which microphone it is, I would choose the SM7B. But without that visual component and that like emotional component, just based on sound alone, I picked the RE20. So it kind of goes to show you how much your preconceived notions affect things. Now, I will say though, the SM7B, they're both great sounding mics, right? Like neither one is bad. And the SM7B has quite an edge over the RE20 in terms of how easy it is to mount on things and how well it does at rejecting handling noise. I'm scared to touch this microphone because every little movement is going to get picked up. So it's like position the microphone and never touch it again. That's what we're doing today. So that's what I'm using. That's what we're running through, and it's all going through Ecamm Live to do the video version. And I've got my Elgato foot pedal down here so I can switch the intro and outro, which is very cool. So when it's time to end the show, I just stomp my foot and it plays the outro and the recording ends. How cool is that? Speaking of things that are cool though, I do have a voice submission, which is going to be a great introduction to this week's topic. This is a voice submission sent to me by Linwood Campbell.
It's Linwood. I've been listening to you for a while now, and there's never been a question in my mind about trust in regard to your product reviews or your opinions about whatever you're talking about. I see you painstakingly making an effort to be upfront with your audience about your relationship with companies and products, and I respect that. I believe, especially in view of your recent party celebrating breaking 100,000 subscribers, that a number of us hold the same opinion about your integrity. You've made some recommendations on some products, and I followed through on some of those purchases. Most recently, some Rode products. And, as a side note, you've mentioned how great that company is, and my friend Catherine is interning with them now, and they went above and beyond the call to get her there and provide some medical care for her in the process. They even held her position for her due to illness.
I don't know why the recording ended there. That's not where Linwood ended his recording. But it ended, it ended there. Well, you know what? I will refresh my audio player and we'll talk about
Hey,
that
Tom.
first part
It's
there.
me.
Hi, Linwood. I appreciate the kind words, very, very much so. And we talked via email about this situation with your friend interning at Road, and it was very, very cool that basically they offered an internship before the world ended, and then the world ended, and instead of just backtracking on everything, which they could have easily done, and lots of companies do that kind of thing, they made sure, Road made sure not to do that, and treated her well, and now she's there having a great time, and that's fantastic. Here is the rest of the message.
There and provide some medical care for her in the process. They even held her position for her due to illness. So, another example of your insights into good companies and products bearing fruit that I can see for myself. For those detractors, those commenters that say paid sponsorship or some other dribble along those lines, I say they are jealous of what you've accomplished. I think the rest of us can easily read between their lines and see crap for what it is. Hats off to you for all you've accomplished and yet remained humble. Blue skies, Tom. Blue skies.
Thanks again, Linwood. I do take pride in being the most humble person on planet Earth. That's a joke, by the way. I appreciate the kind words very much, and especially the support when it comes to people who maybe aren't as positive about things, and that ties in very well here. So a thing that I realized, like a big realization, there have been a lot of realizations for me over the past few weeks, but one of them was during the 100K live stream, there was a video played that I did not expect. And I can't remember if we've talked about that on here or not, but Lewis, Mr. Camera Junkie, as he's known on YouTube, organized this whole thing. I thought maybe Heather did this at first, but she didn't. She was a part of it, but he organized the whole thing and basically reached out to so many people. Like there were, I think, 40 people involved in the video, but he even reached out to more. And it was just, not everyone could participate even if they wanted to. But like 40 people took the time to record and share and make these little messages. And then Lewis went through and edited it all together in a way that made sense, in a way that kept the meaning of everything, and a way that also kept it from being 9 hours long, which was pretty amazing. And I had no idea about any of this. And so before we did the live stream, I was like, the live stream was pretty impromptu. It was literally something decided on like late Thursday or early Friday. Like, yeah, okay, we'll do a live stream on Saturday. And I didn't know that meant then all these people were going to have to kick into high gear, especially Lewis, to edit everything together and match all these audio levels between different things. It's crazy the amount of work he had to do. And I didn't know about any of this. And Heather set up these activities during the stream, which you can watch the replay on my channel, including this video. And she's like, oh, look, here's the next thing. It's like a guess the video or whatever. And she played it. And suddenly this video started playing with I was crying by like 12 seconds into it because it was so heartfelt and so touching. And it's one of the most special things ever. And it was really cool because it wasn't just for me. It was a fun thing for a bunch of people to participate in and connect over, and just seeing that whole experience where it was even Heather sitting next to me. Nobody in that stream, nobody in that video, none of the people who I feel very strongly connected to now, we didn't even know each other 5 years ago. We didn't know any of us existed 5 years ago. And it was just through YouTube and through making something and through connecting that all of that really special stuff was able to happen. And that was pretty amazing. And then thinking about, I've recorded stuff for people too, when they'll say, hey, we're doing this thing, could you record a quick whatever for somebody? And it's not that it's difficult, but sometimes it's not the most convenient thing in the world. You're like, okay, I have to remember to do that, or I have to set everything up to do it. And of course, everybody in the video looks and sounds absolutely amazing because they're all really good at what they do. And so even just knowing someone had to take time, even if they were already filming or recording something else and they just needed to spend another 2 minutes recording this, just taking the time to do it, to send the file, to upload, it's a process. It's extra calories that they did not have to burn, but they wanted to burn. And I was at the time prior to this, like, a few weeks back, I was feeling so just frustrated and bummed out and negative. And it was literally, I was having these feelings and focusing on people like Linwood was mentioning, just, spit and dribble, which is just such a great word. While literally at that same time, there were all of these other incredible people who were sharing incredibly positive things about, the stuff that I've made. And it was a real wake up call of why am I focusing on the dribble over here and not on the great stuff and the positive stuff over here? Because this is what really matters. And we've talked about, you can't ignore the negativity, but you can definitely contextualize the negativity. And that was such a good way for me to sort of learn how to do that. And I appreciate that very, very much. And it was really, really wonderful. And that was sort of like, it was like I hit this low point in how I was feeling about stuff, and I was starting to feel better, and I was trying to process it. And even Heather and I were talking, and she was saying, like, I wish, I didn't have to see you get so negatively affected by these things. And I was like, I know, I don't want to be negatively affected by it, but I want to learn how to process it effectively, because ignoring it isn't the way to go, but ruminating on it also isn't the way to go. So I want to learn how to process this, contextualize it, handle it in a constructive, effective way, so that way I can keep going. And it was just sort of a process to get to a point where I feel like I have a pretty good handle on that. Not like it's solved forever or anything or whatever, but I just feel significantly better. And a big part of that really comes from focusing on the people who are there for you and the positivity of that. And, like, it doesn't mean you can ignore criticism, but don't focus more on that. You would be a moron to focus more on that. No, you wouldn't. You're not a moron. But don't focus more on that stuff than on the good stuff. And I think it's only natural as humans that we pay attention to the negative, and the negative hurts a little bit more. And, we've talked about that many times, where you get 10 comments and 9 of them are positive, but you're going to focus on the one negative one instead of putting that in perspective and being like, yeah, but there's 9 really good ones here. And that's a very normal, natural thing to do, but it's also something to be aware of for your own well-being. So currently, I just feel so good about YouTube, my YouTube channel, like the magic of YouTube. I think that was what I was starting to forget, was the absolute magic of being able to make stuff, share stuff, connect with people through it. And then on top of that can actually get to a point where it's like how you can pay the bills and stuff. It's absolutely amazing. And it just helps to put everything else into perspective. And then this past week is when the algorithm bestowed upon me another gift, which was a video. There's a channel. I should be able to switch to this to show you. There's a channel called Super Eye Patch Wolf, which is a great YouTube channel that I've watched several videos from in the past. There's one right here on screen, actually. It's the fall of The Simpsons, how it happened. It's an older video, but if you grew up or spent a lot of time appreciating The Simpsons, it's a very interesting look kind of at that whole thing. But this is a YouTube channel with 1.4 million subscribers, so it's not a small channel. And this past week, he put out a video, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, he put out a video called... I have it right here. Influencer courses are garbage, the dark side of content creation. And that's what I want to focus on today. Because it was sort of interesting, like, as someone who has a course and has made a course, I was like, uh-oh. But then I learned, okay, influencer courses in this case really does mean, like, it's not a course about how to make a podcast, or it's not Heather's course about how to get your YouTube channel up and running in terms of, like, literally going into YouTube Studio and turning on features. This is how to produce a video, all this kind of stuff. But the video is interesting because you can kind of follow the journey. And I'm just speaking from the perspective of a viewer, not because I know this for sure. But it seems like what happened is he wanted to start making a video that was just taking a look at some of these influencer courses, like the courses from, like Jake Paul and the Ace family, and these courses that promise fame and fortune, and that's why they hook people in. And then you get into them, and there's not a lot of meat on those bones. And I think it seems like as he was going through this process, it sort of went into these like creator existential questions about the platform itself and why we do these things. And then it goes into the dark side of content creation and the negative effects that things have, but also the negative effects of the positive things. So of getting growth and attention and money. And it's a discussion that's really interesting because I haven't heard all of these things in one place before, and I haven't heard them put together so clearly and so concisely. And as much as, you don't want to say that the numbers next to someone's name should validate what they say, but it's one thing for me to feel a way about something. But when I see someone who has a 1.4 million subscriber channel, it's been around for the better part of a decade, and they say a lot of things that I also that are the way that I'm feeling, it feels very validating because it's nice to see someone else from this different perspective say those things and feel those things. So I wanted to share a couple bits of that and a couple tidbits. So I made some notes as I was. Well, I've been rewatching the video. So here's my pitch to you. I'll put a link in the show notes. This video is 2 hours long. I strongly encourage you to watch the entire thing at regular speed. Don't 2x it or anything. And I think it's worth actually watching and not just having playing in the background. You can definitely play it and listen to it, but visually there's a lot. The visuals are very important. It's not just a lot of like random unrelated B-roll. The visuals help tell the story in a big way. A lot of work and effort went into it. So even if that means, watching a few minutes every day for a week or something, you don't have to sit down for 2 hours all at once. But I didn't expect to watch the full 2 hours. And what you'll find is it'll feel like a few minutes went by and you're already an hour into it and you're hooked and now you want to go to the very, very end of it. And there's a lot of people in the comments on that video that are saying like they were in tears by the end and stuff. And I can definitely understand why. I even went back and rewatched it a second time just because I wanted to pull so much out of it. And then I went back and rewatched other parts so that I could make notes and some timestamps and things for this episode. So that's a lot of time spent on one video, but I feel like it was really worth it because I got so much out of it. So ultimately, here's like the basis for it is that there's a very lucrative market for courses because the job of content creators, as much as I hate that term and really want to find a different word for content, creators fine, but content don't like it. But it's a high demand thing. I think we've all seen the studies that show kids and, it's like the number one job for a younger generation to want is to be a content creator. So with that in mind, knowing that a big reason a lot of people, and this is something I didn't realize is because it's not my motivating factor or anyone else that I know. It wasn't Heather's. It wasn't like anybody I've talked to through this podcast, anybody I've met through YouTube. Money and notoriety have not been the reasons they got started. Even if they're things they found along the way, they were not the motivating factors. But what I've learned is that is kind of an isolated bubble, and there are a lot of people out there for whom those things are the driving factors for even getting started in the first place. And because of that, there are people who are in those positions where people look up to them and go, man, I want that. I want to be like that. And they can just prey on that, basically. They can charge a bunch of money for a course that doesn't really offer much, but makes people think they can possibly achieve those things. And so the basis of this video is kind of looking at those things. And one thing that I liked right away, though, was that John, who made the video, specifically did call like content creator a job and was looking at it as a job. And I think that was really neat, like legitimizing it as a job and not just sort of like a random hobby that a couple people could maybe make a little bit of money off of. But no, like it's a legit direction to go in if you want to. That's a whole can of worms, getting started, getting to that point, all that kind of stuff. But once you find yourself in those situations, which typically comes from spending a long time on it and not making very much money for a long time. But once you do that and you get to a point where it can be a job, it is a legit thing. And it's not something that's weird or kind of like, fringe or whatever. And I liked that a lot. But that opens up a new avenue for people to get preyed on and things like that. And the reason his main thesis in this this part of the video about the courses is that these are basically scams because nobody does know the answers, which is very true. And that's because the people who make these, see the handling noise on the RE20, the people who make these videos, even if they are successful, they have only been successful once, and they started at a point where they could become successful a long time ago, probably, meaning the things that they did to become successful aren't necessarily relevant to what you would need to become successful now. So it's like it's not that those, it's almost like isn't it survivorship bias? That's what it's called. Like, you made it, so you kind of know what to do, but there's so many variables and so many things that happen along the way. And it's very true that everybody's journey is entirely different. And the thing about any of these courses that promise like tons of numbers of subscribers, tons of numbers of money, is they really don't have the success to show for it. I know, working at a school, let me tell you, we were very proud of like any time a student would get into college or do something very cool after school. But you better believe that like when the times would come around, like a student would get a scholarship to an Ivy League school like Harvard or something, whether or not that was actually the best choice for the kid or not, but that's neither here nor there. When something like that happened, that would literally be on like a banner on the front of the school. People would promote it. So if you're running a course that seeks to make people rich and famous on YouTube, and people are taking your course and seeing success at those things, you would think that you would hear about it, and you don't, because it doesn't work. So that's basically there. And then from there, he dives into the dark side, a lot of things to do with analytics, and a lot of things to do with the toll that takes. So the interesting part to me, I guess, was seeing this glimpse. So here's kind of an example. On this podcast, I've talked many times, and Lyd would even mention like, oh, people who say something is sponsored when it's not sponsored, and the kind of agony of that. And I feel like that's a discussion I've had with people I know many times, and we're all kind of on the same page with how we feel about that. A few months ago, there was a live stream from a popular, YouTube coach, and they were talking about, it was something to do with like navigating brand deals, or like your responsibility as a creator with brand deals, something along those lines. It sounded really interesting to me because as someone, with a lot more experience and arguably more success than me, and I wanted to hear what they had to say. And they were doing a great job on the stream. But what was so interesting was their angle was something I would have never considered. Their angle in that live stream for everyone who was there was essentially trying to convince people not to misrepresent themselves as being sponsored. Basically the exact opposite problem. It would be where someone would go like, if they went to VidCon and they got a little trinket from the Canon booth or something, and then using that to be like, oh, like, look, I'm sponsored by Canon because I talked to people from Canon and they gave me this thing, and I'm now sponsored by Canon, like misrepresenting themselves being sponsored because they wanted the clout of being able to say they were sponsored. And I was like, is that a thing? And then I realized as I was watching the stream, I didn't watch the entire stream, but I watched a good chunk of it, there were so many people, there were hundreds of people watching, and so many people like in the live chat asking questions kind of about these things. And the person hosting the stream had to constantly remind them like, this is what it would mean if you were actually this is not that like, and it blew my mind to realize that there was a giant swath of people out there who are so desperate for that thing that they'll almost become dishonest for it, which is very, very strange. And you can kind of then see where that drive for attention and money and numbers, where it goes. Because even there's clips in the video that I've been talking about from some of the courses, because he ended up taking 11 different courses. And there's clips from some of them where people are literally like not so subtly advocating for buying views and subscribers, which is totally against YouTube's terms of service and not a legit thing to do. But it's like, oh yeah, if you need to get started, you could just buy some views, buy some subscribers to get the ball rolling. Like, no, don't do. Is that really the advice that people are getting? And it kind of just comes down to like, after he went through all of these courses, it just sort of comes down to the same advice, like the same most standard YouTube advice. Focus on videos and thumbnails. Look at your analytics. Use the analytics to decide what to make next. And it's just sort of that kind of basic approach, which there's nothing inherently wrong with, but it does sort of like hurt your soul creatively to just sort of look at things that way. And I think that over the past few years, the emphasis on that kind of approach, of that very analytic, data-driven approach to making stuff for YouTube, has become so popular. And it can answer questions for you, and it can be helpful in its own way, but I think that it has a very detrimental effect overall. And it's a lot of power to put in people's hands without really the training to understand how to use it. So actually, I want to share with you a clip from the video, and then it'll kind of contextualize things, and I think it might help to hear from not just me on this. So this is just a short clip of the video starting at about 32 minutes. If you wanted to see it for yourself, and you should be able to hear the audio when I press play, I think.
Online influencer courses. I am now going to save you that time and money by telling you the same 4 steps every one of these courses is built off.
There's also
1,
a curse word.
create multiple videos a week. 2, use special internet secrets to beat the YouTube algorithm. 3, use the analytics from those videos to decide all future videos. 4, repeat until famous, rich, or both. This is what I call the slot machine approach to YouTube. And it sounds pretty good, right? Well, it is. Or at least it would be if it wasn't complete fucking nonsense. I genuinely despise this approach to making YouTube videos, and I think it's worth taking some time and exploring why. This is probably gonna sound corny to a lot of people, but to me, YouTube videos are a little piece of who you are and what you care about, compressed into video form and shot across the internet. Is that
Okay. There we go. There's so many things to try and push here in terms of buttons. I think I might have doubled up the audio at the beginning there. I apologize. But hopefully you got the main point there, which is basically he's looking at, this is what all the courses boil down to. It's like, make videos, look at your analytics, and just keep repeating that over and over again. That's the most common advice that you're going to get from these kinds of courses. And again, somebody with a giant YouTube channel and pretty much like what you could argue is objective success on the platform, saying that that is absolute nonsense. And not just that that's nonsense, but the point that he's leaving off with, which hopefully is a teaser for you to go finish the video because it's really good, is that when you make something, if you're not making it just with that intention of like, I guess here's an example. I literally met a person in real life a couple of years ago who was talking about Instagram, and he was really excited about his Instagram. And he was, I don't know why, I did not ask him about his Instagram, by the way, but he was showing me his phone, and he was like, look at this picture from my Instagram today. I was like, okay. And it was like a picture of a bridge in the sunset or something. I was like, yeah, it's a nice photo. He's like, man, I just took this photo from my phone, like out the car window. I didn't spend any time on this. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. Phones have good cameras these days. He's like, I just put like a filter on there and people love it. Like, look at this. And he had, it was some insane amount of, it was like 10,000 likes or something on this photo. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. He's like, I don't care what it is. Like, you just do this and get these numbers. I don't care who the numbers are. I don't care what the thing is. I just want to keep getting these numbers. And I was like, wow, we shouldn't be friends at all, because obviously I didn't say that, but yikes, that was a real person, a real grown man saying these things to me. And it blew my mind. So that approach, if that's why you're making videos and podcasts and things, I can't help you. But I don't think you are. If you're this far into this point of this episode, I don't think that that's you. And it's not me, and it's not the guy who made this video, and it's not a lot of people who watch this video, which is rapidly approaching 1 million views. And that makes me very, very happy to know that that many people are hearing this, at least parts of it. If you're somebody who's putting effort into what you make, even if it is something like a tutorial or a review, the way that you create it, the way that you craft it, the way that you package it and share it with the world is an expression of yourself. It is, like he just said in the video, it's a little part of yourself that you're sharing with the world. And that is a really special thing, even if the video itself doesn't feel like it's an artistic expression. Some people might make like, here's my short film. I worked on it for 2 years. It means a lot to me. It's a very deep personal story. That's awesome. But also, here's my Rode Procaster review. That can also be an expression of yourself, and a little has your fingerprints all over it. It's something you wanted to share with the world from your perspective. And that's a really special thing. And so the point that gets brought up here has to do a lot with analytics, which is you have these things that you want to share and these ideas that you want to share. And if you dive too much into the analytics and you become a slave to the platform, then what that ends up doing is dictating what you're creating. And while you might even see short-term success, because, if you look at, hey, these are my most popular videos. Look, there's a common thread between the most popular 2 or 3. Maybe if I just make more videos like that, I will see more success and the videos will perform better. And then you do, and maybe they will. And so in the short term, you are seeing success. Your channel's growing, your audience is growing, maybe your revenue's increasing, whatever metrics you want to use, probably are seeing success. But down the line, I think that's where you're going to end up seeing more like disenchantment, more burnout, more frustration, less creative fulfillment. And if you want to do something, whether it's just as a hobby or as a job, if you want to do something like this, it needs to be for the long term. It can't be for short term, a few months, a year, like, can I just get the most explosive growth possible in the short amount of time? It's like, no, I need to do this in a way that's going to keep me going for a really long time. And when you take that extreme data-driven approach to what you make, it really risks putting that at jeopardy. I do think that analytics have a place. Like, I'm not saying don't ever look at your analytics. I think you should know which ones you want to look at. Like, obviously, when my channel was approaching a big milestone, I was paying a lot of attention to that subscriber analytic because I wanted to know when I was going to hit the milestone. If you start putting ads on your videos or start monetizing your videos, it makes sense. So you might want to look at your revenue to see what the difference is. Did mid-roll ads make a difference? Did skippable versus unskippable? Like, you might want to actually get some info. I think when you have a question that you want answered, your analytics can have so much useful information. I think, if you want to know, hey, do my videos that have my face in the thumbnail perform better than the ones that don't, that just have an object in the thumbnail? And you can find that information and go, okay, it seems like the ones without me perform significantly better. Like, if you have a specific question, you can probably find an answer to it. But that doesn't mean that if you have an idea for an amazing thumbnail that has your face in it, to never do it just because the current data said no. The current data is only based on things that are currently happening. It doesn't know. I guess here's a good example. One of my YouTube friends who has a channel with several 100,000 subscribers recently redid his studio. And he put out his first video with like the new setup yesterday. And I watched it and I was like, wow, this looks amazing. It looks so good. And his whole goal was to try to create a setup that not only looked good, but was very much like flip the switch, everything's ready to go, hit record and just go. And so I made sure to tell him like, this looks amazing. And then he wrote back and he was like, can I like ask your true opinion? Like, how does this really look? I don't know if this angle is good or if the background is too like, claustrophobic. Maybe I should be shooting into a corner so that way the room has a little bit more depth and things look a little better. And I was thinking about that and I was like, yeah, I totally know what you mean. Like right now I'm kind of shooting into a corner of my room here, but if I tilt the camera, so here's bonus of the video. If I tilt the camera where you can see, or pan the camera, you can see the whole room. You see the back wall and the side walls. It almost sometimes does feel a little more claustrophobic because you can see that I'm in a room. Whereas if I have it positioned where you can't see both walls, you only see maybe 2 walls in a corner, the room feels bigger and more open because you can't see that there is a barrier right here. And there's all those little things to take into account when you're making stuff. And what I realized was what I was seeing, the thing that he made was amazing. And I love the way that it looked. What he was seeing was all of the options he didn't take, all of the things he didn't do, all the things he chose not to do with the shot, all the other opportunities. We don't know those things. You as the creator, the infinite number of choices that you had to whittle down to get to the thing that you made. The viewer, the audience only sees what you actually made. And the two are just oftentimes not the same thing at all. And so that's basically what I told him was like, your shot looks amazing as it is. Like, I'd be happy to look at test shots from another angle if you want feedback on those. But, I don't know I can't tell you what those look like because I can't see them. What I can tell you is the thing I'm seeing looks absolutely amazing. And your YouTube analytics are kind of the same thing because they can just tell you this is based on everything you've made, based on how things are doing. This is that information. It does not know another idea that you have. It does not know a goal or a preference, or it has no idea about those things that live in your brain that you have not created yet. And that's important to remember before you let it dictate what you do and what you create. Because ultimately, as the dark side of content creation video points out, the algorithm does two things. And this is where it gets into like the dark side of stuff. So he interviews a whole bunch of creators, both large and small, everybody from millions of subscribers to a few hundred subscribers, about the top 10 ranking system in YouTube Studio. When you log into YouTube Studio and it shows you your most recent upload compared to your previous 9 uploads and where it ranks. And every single person he talked to had a negative feeling about that feature because you can't escape it. It's right there. You even if you don't want to look at it, you like can't avoid it while you're trying to get to other info that you want to look at. It's just right there. And pretty much, unless it's one of the rare times where you have a video that performs well, it kind of just makes you feel bad. So you look at it and you just feel crummy. And even the times that you feel good, it's almost dangerous how good you feel. Like maybe you shouldn't be having that strong of a feeling either way towards that, because that's going to affect how you feel about the next thing that you make or the previous thing that you make. If, we've all maybe had experiences where we work on something that we're very excited about, but we're very excited about it. We're very proud of it. Then we upload it and it gets ranked 10 out of 10, which in the world of YouTube is a bad thing. 1 out of 10 is the high mark. So it gets a 10 out of 10, and then you feel like, oh, yeah, this was a bad video. It's like, no, the video was good. It was good. And everything you felt about it is still true. And the people who are watching can still get a lot out of it. It's just, who cares? Like, the numbers aren't where they're supposed to be. And this video dives into like what the algorithm is, which is, of course, this just amorphous term for things that people don't understand about how YouTube works. But basically, it's something that tries to get people to watch as much YouTube as possible. And something that I haven't heard anyone else discuss is it also is designed to get people to create as much as possible, but not necessarily from a creative standpoint. It's kind of designed to make you create stuff that it does think people will watch, but also to kind of scare you if you don't. Like, YouTube will say, take a break. It's okay. You don't have to upload weekly. Regular upload schedules don't affect anything. But ask anybody who's taken a significant amount of time away from their channel if it has had a negative effect on their channel. Most of them will say yes, that it has. Most, not all, but most will say that it has. And so that fear, and whether or not it even will, that fear of, oh my gosh, what could happen? And my numbers are going down, this, that, it just keeps you wanting to make more. And so if you want to make stuff, like right now, I feel like I'm in a very good position where even though I have a weekly thing, the weekly appointment is, I like that as a connection with people who watch my videos. Like, that's a cool, there are a number of people who are like, yeah, I eat breakfast, or you're with me on my lunch break every Thursday or whatever. That's cool. And I think about that specifically, which, by the way, Michael, if you're listening to this in the Wendy's parking lot, or you're eating your Wendy's lunch in the parking lot, I hope you're having a great lunch. But anyway, like, that's cool. And that to me is a great reason to have a consistent upload schedule. There's a lot of reasons why it works for me personally, but I like that. I like that kind of appointment connection with the community. I think that that's amazing. But also, I kind of forgot where I was going with this, honestly, but if you feel like the reason that you're doing that is only to please the platform, that's going to put you in a very dangerous headspace. And so here's my biggest takeaway, and this is why this video was so exciting to me, because it starts off and you're looking at these influencer courses, which just makes you feel bad for humanity. Then you're looking at the dark side of content creation, everything from all the negative mental effects that it has on people to even when things go really well, like I mentioned, stuff goes positive, but that has negative repercussions as well. And then at the end, or the last, I don't know, quarter of the video, there's this really, it's kind of where like my takeaway came from. There's even like this really cool animated segment that sort of describes a YouTube journey in the most accurate and interesting way I've ever seen described. So definitely recommend checking it out. But ultimately the takeaway was that you definitely should just make the thing that you want to make. The best thing that you can do on the YouTube platform is to make what you want to make and what you're excited about, and create that thing that you can share with the world, that little piece of yourself that gets to go out with the world. And that probably is not going to be what the algorithm or the analytics or any of the, like traditional methods of YouTube coaching are going to tell you to do. But that's probably going to be the thing that makes you stand out. That's probably going to be the thing that helps you find something that works for you, connects with an audience, and most importantly, if this is something that you want to do for the long haul, that's probably something that's going to help make it more sustainable. So you just do the best thing you can do, the best you can. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but just make the best stuff that you can right now in the way that you want to. And think about why that you're doing that, and why do you want to do those things? And, is it because you want to share something? Is it because you want popularity or a number associated with your name? And maybe reevaluate some of those answers. But ultimately, if you're just making the best thing you can, the best way that you can, that's going to set you up for the highest level of success in terms of like creative fulfillment and long-term creative sustainability. That sounds like such a smart sentence that I just said. It's really, really great. And it's really like, I think the conclusion of the video that left me feeling so good was it focuses so much on the journey of being somebody who makes stuff and shares it with an audience. And I just found that absolutely fascinating, that ultimately, even from somebody who's with a huge channel, been doing it for a long, long time, still actively being able to go like, no, it's your own creative excitement that should drive everything. If you understand why you're doing this, that will determine your success at any level. If your goal, like I was going back and trying to like fix some broken parts of video descriptions this past week, and I ended up going to some of like my oldest videos. There's a few that have barely 100 views after 5 years. Like they're objectively not successful videos on my channel. And some of them are also objectively not great videos on my channel, but they all played a role in my personal creative journey. And I remember, especially those early videos, it really wasn't about at all having other people watch them or interact with it. It was about me making something. The fact that I made something was the success. If anybody watched it, that was just a bonus. But being comfortable pointing a camera at myself, being comfortable sharing something online, being comfortable sharing an opinion or a thought, that was why I needed to do those things there. And if I could do that, then that was a success, regardless of who watched what. So you can determine that why and why you want to make something. If you want just that creative fulfillment, if you want to build a community, if you're just looking to build a community, that video that's ranked 10 out of 10 that YouTube is telling you is a failure, oftentimes those are the ones that the people who consistently watch what you make will connect with the most. So you go through the comments on those, and even if there's not as much of them as normal, you'll oftentimes see that the people who are watching it are getting a lot out of it and connecting with it in a really positive way. And it's like, okay, if my goal was to just get as many numbers as possible, this video is a failure. If my goal is to make something creative that connects with other people in a meaningful way, this video is a massive success. And the analytics don't know what your approach is. They just show you whatever they're programmed to show you. You're the one that gets to decide what your why is and what your metric for success is in those situations. So, without just rehashing what the video goes into, the whole point that I got so excited about it was because it did kind of confirm and solidify so much of what I was already feeling. And it was just nice to sort of get that external confirmation or validation about these things that I was feeling, because it can be scary. If everybody's telling you to do X and you decide to do Y, you might wonder why, and it might feel like you're doing something wrong. But honestly, it's not so much of any creative endeavor is you deciding what works for you, and then just having the courage to stick to that, which sometimes mean you might not find yourself surrounded by a bunch of other people yet. But I think that if you have the courage to keep doing that, even if you feel lonely at first, you will eventually find yourself surrounded by other people, because what you're doing matters and is important and helps you connect with other people in really meaningful ways. So definitely take the time to check out that video, even like I said, if you have to watch it in chunks over several periods. But if you have some time set aside to sit back and watch, the 2 hours will absolutely fly by. It's super, super worth it. So thank you again, Linwood, for sending in a message. Thank you, if you're still here, for listening and watching this. I appreciate it. I apologize for any technical troubles. I should let you know, if you're listening to this in real time, I'll be taking a break next week, so there will not be a new episode next week, and then there'll be a new episode after that. It'll be episode 9, and then something very, very special planned for episode 10. So you'll have to see then when it is released. If you're listening to a replay of this, not when it's sent out live, then you can just go to next episode right now, because it should already be done, even though in my world it doesn't even exist yet. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, as always, if you have something that you would like to share, feel free to send a voice, video, or text-based message, not a text message, to tom@enthusiasmproject.com, or you can go to hi-my-name-is-tom.com and just click on the submit audio recording thingy right there. It's a big, obnoxious orange button. You can't miss it, I promise. So I'm going to do my conclusion, and then I'm going to see if I can just push this pedal with my foot and end the show successfully. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time with me. Thank you for all of your kindness and support. I hope you have a safe, happy, healthy, fun rest of your week or weeks, and I will see you next time.